Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Creating and Optimizing Rewards for a Loyalty Program That Pays. My name is Megan Billingsley, and I'll be moderating today's discussion. The role of C-stores has evolved, moving from a quick stop for the rushed morning commuter or a one-time visit from a road tripper into a habit for consumers needing fuel, fresh food, snacks, and more. And in an industry where margins are tight and competition is fierce, successful C-stores know that consistent profits come from ensuring those occasional shoppers have indeed become devoted regulars. To that end, C-store operators have seen the benefits of loyalty programs. Paytronix Solutions' 2025 Loyalty Report has found that the strongest loyalty programs garner more than 80% of adoption. But not all C-store operators know how to harness the power of a loyalty program to boost their profits. They find themselves either unsure where to start or recognizing that their program is barely scratching the surface of its potential. Today, we're chatting with Donnie Fairbanks, Senior Loyalty Strategist at Paytronix Systems, a digital guest engagement platform for restaurants and C-stores, who will draw on his deep background to share best practices for how C-stores can optimize their loyalty programs. He'll cover how they can use analytics and data within a framework specifically designed for the unique challenges of the convenience store environment. Before we get started, I have just a few housekeeping items. Please note the slides will advance automatically throughout the presentation. To enlarge the slides, click the Enlarge Slides button located in the top right corner of your presentation window. If you need technical assistance, click on the Help widget located on the bottom left corner of your console. We encourage you to submit questions at any time throughout the presentation using the Q&A widget at the bottom of your console. We will try to answer these during the webcast, but if a fuller answer is needed or we run out of time, it will be answered later via email. Please know we do capture all questions. So to begin with, Donnie, why don't you share more about your role at Paytronix and how its solutions can help C-stores achieve consistent growth?
Fantastic. Hi, everyone. Great to be here. Talking about that thing I love to talk about most, which is loyalty. I am a senior strategist with Paytronix, running on 5 years now. Prior to that, I had about another 15 years of doing loyalty with various organizations across the spectrum of categories. I have a fairly deep background into kind of the grounding of loyalty and that emotional connection that's required to really link people back to a brand and establish that brand love that keeps them coming back and really change their behavior. It is a path I chose very openly. And honestly, I came to the C-store side of this with Paytronix because of the availability of data that is captured around those consumers specifically and how we apply that to, again, know who these people are on a one-to-one basis and be able to really motivate behaviors that were positive for the brand and the customer. I look forward to going through the next 30 minutes or so, talking about various approaches to loyalty within C-stores. I am going to keep it fairly simple because I think what happens most is making C-store loyalty complex is typically what hinders its ability to be optimal. So I talk about it in simple terms. There's nuance to this, but basically a lot of the complexity happens in the systems that you use to launch those loyalty programs more so than how a consumer experiences them. So that's kind of the things I'm going to be talking about.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. And I would imagine that everyone listening today is grappling with the uncertainty of today's environment, from inflation and tariffs to just general consumer concern. So we know that you're talking to operators every day. What are you hearing about how they're dealing with these economic pressures?
Well, they're thankful that they have loyalty programs in place for the most part. The problem with the economy when it starts to get on a roller coaster, whether that's COVID or presidency that takes things a little south, is that we end up having to rely on those people who are closest to the brands. And I'll talk a lot about brand love, but basically we want to establish that relationship well in advance of these things because it does recession-proof your brand to a certain degree. when we see those ups and downs on the bottom line, typically the loyalty line stays very flat, if not grows. It just performs better in the storm, if you will. And basically, that's what we try to do with our brands, is establish that you have, again, that foundation with those customers on a broad scale, and have the tools in place that enable you to continue the conversation regardless of the economy of things. And if all that sounds expensive at a time when money starts to become tight, it's really not. Again, loyalty sets you up for the soft benefits that don't necessarily cost the brand, and that enable customers, again, to feel like they're appreciated, even if they're maybe not coming in as much because they don't have as much to spend. The brand endures those periods with those customers. And yeah, that's about it.
So yeah, it makes a lot of sense in light of ongoing reports regarding how consumers are aiming to cut back. But at the same time, we also hear about the trend of little luxuries, which your morning coffee or afternoon sugar fix can most certainly provide. So Donnie, how are you seeing C-stores optimize their program with an effective loyalty framework?
First of all, it's monitoring closely behaviors with their customer base. So especially targeting and looking at those high frequency guests, the people that are already your best customers, but also the ones that are in that opportunity state in the middle, who are coming in sometimes, but maybe not coming to you every time. You know, they have one or two or three different brands that they frequent. Is we work on how do we migrate them into a deeper relationship and a better pattern in terms of their visits and their usage within brands. How do we cross-pollinate between pump and in-store? Either way, you know, if they're basically merch customers, what are the things we can do to dynamically get them to maybe start going to the pump as well? Simple low-hanging fruit approaches like that. Also working closely with vendors to bring more value-add opportunities for delivery of discounted or free items to those customers, specifically because they are in the loyalty program.
And I'm glad that you mentioned discounts, because I know that a loyalty program does not necessarily translate to a discount program, but most rewards programs do include discounts. So how do you define or differentiate between the discounts and rewards?
I'm glad you set that up for me. Because there is some confusion. Some brands believe that having a strong discount strategy is a loyalty program. And although discounts are a part of loyalty, loyalty is really a very different animal in terms of how it behaves. It's reliance on data and understanding of the customer. And it requires that you treat them differently. Whereas discounts will get you a customer on a one-time visit, a date, if you will. Loyalty is marriage. Loyalty is how we sort of seal the deal and actively change the behavior on a longer-term basis. Retention within a discount model is day-to-day. Retention within a loyalty model is year-to-year. If you look at McKinsey or Harvard or several others, they will tell you that having a loyalty program extends your life cycle with a customer, or lifespan with a customer, as much as 40%. If they're coming to you for a year and a half and then starting to wean off, life change or some other aspect, loyalty will typically keep them in potentially up to another year. So it does this amazing thing of driving those frequent and spend behaviors in the short term, but also keeping them in the brand. Loyalty discounts, discounts alone though, they're going to drive spikes in your traffic, but if you watch those spikes, they are almost gone in terms of the ripples after the fact. Whereas loyalty programs are going to have deep ripples that continue on and even keep continuing to elevate the program. These are the ways we can optimize using loyalty again without having to run national campaigns that deliver, a BOGO to your entire audience to get them coming back. Loyalty, we can do that very specifically. Look at the audiences that are available out there and bring them back in on a one-to-one basis. So I don't need to tell 1 million people something's happening to get the right 50,000, the message that I want to drive their behavior.
So it sounds then maybe like a discount might be more random, whereas a loyalty program has structure. And I would imagine, data and analytics can also help that lean into personalization. Would you say that that's accurate?
It's absolutely accurate. Loyalty is more predictable. With a fair amount of accuracy, we can judge someone's lifetime value, how often they're going to come back, what their visit patterns are going to be, what products they're going to potentially be open to considering. Again, the discount is just a catch as catch can. And I don't mean to talk badly of discounts. They're essential. They really are, to promoting products, to driving trial, to managing a business bottom line. But they're more of a tactic than a strategy in my life. I tend to look at strategy and loyalty strategy specifically is a cohesive thing that brings together all aspects of your brand, and again opens you that channel directly with a consumer. It's the best of the models that are available right now. It also obviously grounds you in a lot of data specific to that member or that consumer, and with the use of AI tools in the back end, we're able to now, one, dynamically target them on any given basis, but also to be able to mine that data as robust as it is and come out with what are predictable, again, I think, patterns that we're going to see moving forward that could expand the audience in general, but also expand the individual behaviors. One more visit, a little more spend on each visit.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I would imagine when it comes to preparing those offers, there would be a concern that you don't want to subsidize behavior that, maybe was already going to happen, like giving $1 off coffee every time that they're there, or offering something that doesn't even align with their interests, like the buy 10, get one free, if they're not even coffee drinkers at all. So could you talk a little bit more about the types of rewards operators should prioritize and how they can determine the right mix?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up subsidization, because that cannibalization, whatever you want to call it, again, you have data on these customers, you know what their behaviors are, and again, you can predict what their likely visit patterns and such are. You want to set those incentives and things that you put out to them so that they're not falling into those normal purchasing patterns, and knowing that you're driving that incrementality clearly. Can you go back and just restate the second part of your question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, just curious about the types of rewards that operators
Sure.
should be prioritizing and how to determine the right mix of that.
Absolutely. So first of all, I would have to caveat it to say that rewards should be based, obviously, on preference and behavior wherever possible. The best loyalty programs understand their consumers, sometimes with their patterns and their first-party data, sometimes with third-party data that's appended to it, but understanding, what socioeconomic group they fall into. Do they have children? Do they have a car? How often are they coming in? The more grounded questions about their transactions with the brand, but all of that kind of paints a picture about who these people are, and it enables us, again, to push them back into the program. So with rewards, again, the first goal is to have things that are relevant to an individual. And we do that wherever we can with data and other things that inform us in terms of what their preference is, and even lookalike models to what they may be interested in. I'm a big advocate of having surveys and asking people what they want to see in a program, what appeals to them. We have an actual survey module that you can have a survey out in an hour and pick the group that you want to deliver it to and send it out and see what you see. insights are important. In terms of general appeal, though, within C-stores, we used to say cash is king. Cash equivalent is king these days. And cash equivalent in C-stores is fuel discounts. Fuel, ever since COVID, got expensive, is a pain point. It has an inflated perception of value to most customers out there. A 5-cent, 10-cent fuel discount just says something different to a customer. And it also, on the feel-good side of it, is very relevant to a pain in their lives, which is paying for fuel and paying to get around in their lives. So fuel discounts in any capacity, I strongly recommend using. They also come with a certain spend level that offsets the cost of them. Within store discounts, based on spend levels, based on purchase items, can be a very effective tool as well. But again, it's about, like, if you're sending me things that are constantly telling me I can get a Monster or some other drink discounted, or buy two, get one, and I don't drink any of those things, I'm kind of left out of that mix, and I'm getting communications that aren't on point for what I expect from the brand. Over time, that erodes that connection. It makes me think that the brand doesn't really care about me and my preferences. So I think that you really want to try to communicate with people who are going to be, or find the offers you're throwing out there to be relevant. And it's not rocket science. People are motivated by, I could go into the nuances of different types of price offers and things that may work out really well for you, but simply having an understanding of who they are, and also offering them the ability to use equity from the program towards getting value, getting free stuff, getting discounted items. Obviously, that's at the heart of loyalty. You control the economics of that currency that you're putting out there, and you can use it. And a lot of brands don't do this as well as they should. You can use that currency to let them pick the things that are relevant to them. And you do that on, some sort of an efficient model, because again, the points in that program are structured the way they are to bring economy to the brand, but also to deliver value. And it's kind of that fuzzy science that we would help you to kind of put together.
Great. Thank you so much. So we've touched on data and analytics, things that would give you insights into a consumer's normal shopping patterns, behaviors, and possibly even what might indicate like a routine change or something like that. And that data that you've discussed is so valuable. Is it something that can be available to retailers of any size?
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. And it's a part of what really attracted me to Paytronix as a provider. Intuitive back-end systems that enable you to, in real time, really be able to understand your audience base, be able to set up campaigns, communications, offers to send out to very select members of those based on criteria or filtering. And that's a fairly robust model. There's some of those what we call scores that enable you to actually set up a cadence of rules that will determine when a customer sees a campaign or offer, automate the entire process. But those are available to anyone that basically is leveraging our platform to do loyalty and messaging. And it's simple enough for an old guy like me to walk into and understand, within an hour or two, how big a potential play this is. And for someone that's starting out, that is going to be your biggest challenge. Where do I keep all this data? How do I control it and be able to access it, and then leverage it to apply to the offers and campaigns I want to put into market? And it's sort of a 1, 2, 3, 4 step type thing where you're going to quickly be able to get into a flow where you have good communications and you're understanding what the impact of those things you're sending out are, and even down to the details of understanding how many communications they're getting for you on a monthly basis. How responsive are they to these communications, and manipulating that, if you will, to optimize that you are getting their, keeping their attention and driving them back into the brand when maybe they're starting to fall off a little bit.
Excellent. Thank you. I'd like to talk a little about cross-pollination, if we could, because I can see how many C-stores might have customers who only use the fuel or who only buy merchandise, or maybe they only use the car wash or other adjacent business. Yet there's so much more value to be had by growing this customer's relationship with your brand. So could you unpack that a bit?
Yeah, and this is a funny one. From a personal standpoint, I'm a guy that just pulls into the filling station. I'm from Ohio. That's what we call it. The filling station. I fill up my car and I drive out. And that's largely, where my head was at for a very long time. But as we dug into the kind of the various programs that we had, I started to realize, man, there's a lot of value in these stores, and there is a tremendous volume of customers who are just going into those stores. And again, COVID changed the model a little bit, and it took people that were going to the grocery for the groceries and, would fill up at the stations and try to avoid contact. They started just coming into convenience stores and forming that behavior of picking up the items as opposed to going into crowded grocery stores. That has stayed around. And honestly, it helped, I think, create these new patterns and behaviors. And now there's a lot of spillover between the two. And obviously, that's not happening across the board. That's when the program comes into play, because one, we want that value that they're earning to be on both channels. So obviously, that exponentially changes how quickly they're going to get to a point where they're seeing value back from the program. But when we're not seeing that happen, when we are seeing purely fuel focused or merch focused, you can set up dynamic tools, again, using the systems to say, every time this guy comes to the pump, we're going to drop an email or a push notification. Come into store. It could be for a free item, or it could be for some special deal, but something that says, there's something here for you. Just give it a shot. Get them through the door that first time. We're trying to drive that behavior iteratively. Obviously, we want to come, if we get them in through those doors 3 times, we know that we have them. We know that their likelihood to visit goes up well into the 90s. But it's a challenge. That's why you need those communication channels available to you. Driving them from the store to the pump is the same type of process. And there's many ways you can do it. We can get very creative about how we structure what those, again, offers are. Cents off fuel, obviously, because you purchase $25 today. You start to, drive a little more incrementality in store, and you put basically money on their accounts that they'd be silly not to redeem and get the value of. So that's how we do that.
And all the insights that you're talking about, they're really key to amplifying these programs, especially during potentially tough upcoming times, as we talked about earlier. And in fact, I understand that you've developed some specific resources to help teams as they're navigating this uncertain time.
Yeah, there are a number of tools that basically they can fill out, and it's like profit margin improvement in C-stores, tools of that nature. And they help ground what that approach is really in simple terms and take you through a step-by-step process. And you complete these documents, and then we bring them into our systems and come back to you with, recommendations and plans for how you can optimize your business and use the tools that we have available. Use again, a lot of the levers that are in that loyalty relationship, as well as the operational components of the store that we're aware of, and blend those so that, again, you're bringing efficiencies to the business through these platforms. Loyalty programs are so prevalent because they work. And in the past, they've been judged by, do they drive bottom line? And they do. But it's a tough thing because you're talking about, if you didn't have the loyalty program, would we still be making the same money? And the brands always push back on that. And you can go really deep in the weeds here to determine, what is the profitability of these programs. But the common thing is they do give you a better understanding of who your customers are. They give you these ancillary tools of being able to go in and see how we can use the loyalty program to drive some of these operational challenges that are maybe hindering us from optimizing what we're getting back, both, store sales, even the staff behaviors. Use the program to reward them on top of whatever you're paying them on an hourly basis. Have contests, build excitement with this. All of it helps to stimulate the volume coming through the doors and the kind of the long-term affinity that people have with the brand.
Yeah, that sounds like a really useful resource. Thank you so much, especially today as C-stores aim to eke out every bit of profit. And just a note for our attendees, we do welcome you to download the worksheet. It's the profit margin worksheet from the resources section on your screen. Well, Donnie, we have certainly covered a lot. Do you have something that you wanted to add?
I had one more thing that I really wanted to bring up here. This is, and this is just a general knowledge thing for loyalty in general. It is a lot of details. You don't launch a program and all of a sudden you hit the ground running and you're gold. It is an iterative process, and we work with you to get it a little better every day. Again, simply bringing it to market is going to stimulate either volume and sales or both. But additionally, we then start to do the real work. We try things every day. The systems are set up to do in quick wins, quick losses. But those quick losses build understandings, and it continues to be a refinement over time. And really, my capacity in this is I love my job because I get to work closely with the brand teams to look at these programs and the dynamics of them with an understanding of what's going on in C-stores. And that's really all I do these days. And apply those little learnings, best practices we see in other markets to move that needle constantly. And it is a process that never quite ends, but you start to see the traction of it as your program grows a little over time. And that was it. I thought it was important.
It is very important. I'm glad that you added that. And I know that this whole discussion has likely been very beneficial to our audience as they aim to provide the most value and top-notch experiences for their customers. We do have some time left, so if you're okay with it, I'd love to jump into some audience questions. We've got a few here that we can address. The first says, how do you balance offering what should be valuable rewards with maintaining profitability?
First of all, it's recognizing what true profitability is within these programs. Driving short-term sales is exciting, and it's obviously essential to moving the needle. But the profitability, again, loyalty is the long play. So you will see some lift initially when you put things into market. And there is a cost associated to these programs. What I'm always trying to do is kind of settle back with understanding that, within the loyalty structure, the investments that you're making are for a bit of short-term growth, but also the long-term retention and kind of brand love, again, on the customer side that is essential to these programs. And it's not to say you accept losses. We launch these programs as efficiently as we can. And again, we quickly evaluate how successful they were and then level set and correct course if need be. And we also start up front before we ever launch these programs to understand who we're talking to as an audience, and understanding that this is the audience we want to motivate a behavior on. So we're not throwing something out there that's going to hopefully be subsidizing anyone's behavior. That is a waste of money. If they were going to come in anyway, I mean, yes, they're going to feel maybe a little like about that, but I would much rather give someone something that is off cycle for them, that gets them back into store to spend incrementally, as I'm sure you would too. And we need to do that thoughtfully. And again, understanding who these consumers are within the context of an affinity program like this is critical.
Excellent. Thank you. Next question asks, are you seeing loyalty program fatigue? And if so, how can operators address it?
Honestly, I think more than fatigue, I'm seeing some need for contemporizing it. In other words, if I just made up a word, but making it modern in a certain respect. Consumers are becoming much more selective about the things they put their time against and their energy into. And programs need to kind of stay on the forefront of that. And there are certain models that really work well and others that maybe are a little challenged. And I think it's important that we look at those programs that are starting to maybe slow down for whatever reasons and dig in. And is it fundamentally how we're managing the program, or is it that the program structure maybe no longer resonates? Yeah, I think that's it.
Perfect. Thank you. I think we've got time for one more question, so we'll take this one. What strategies work best for re-engaging dormant loyalty members?
That's a tricky one. They tend to wean off because they're being neglected. And the market is pretty smart about, in general, most brands will throw stuff at you. What I like to do is catch their attention one more time, bring them in. Rich offers will do a little bit of the work on that. Again, you want to be absolutely relevant at this point because you've lost them for a reason. I think part of it is understanding that they're starting to lapse off of a brand before they get there is the big thing. Very hard to bring someone back that hasn't been in your doors for a year. And you can try different things at that audience, but if someone is dormant, if they truly have missed multiple cycles, it's shame on us as providers that we haven't talked to them along the way and found out, whether it is giving them offers that they're not responsive to or sending some type of an olive branch to reach out to them to maybe get their feedback on what would bring them back into the business. But again, it is an emotional connection that you have with these people that is obviously growing stale, and we need to reinvigorate that. And sometimes just making the effort on behalf of the brands can help bring those people back. Obviously, easier and more efficient to re-engage the people who are lapsing off of your brand than it is to find new bodies to fill those roles. So it's a big focus. We have automated campaigns that constantly are monitoring those folks through machine learning and understanding that if they're coming in every 5 days and all of a sudden it's been 6 weeks, we need to get in front of them and we need to, again, re-engage them, bring them back in with something, and let them know that the brand cares about them as a customer. That's it.
Well said. Thank you. That is all the time that we have for today. Again, to our audience, we invite you to download the profit margin worksheet mentioned earlier from the resources section on your screen. Thank you, Donnie, and all of you in our audience for being with us today. We hope to see you again soon. Have a great day.
Thank you.